All right. Gentlemen, good morning. Welcome. Very happy that you've decided to attend this session. I'm grateful that you chose to spend your time with me. Um, the topic of this session is Azure Active Directory collaboration using Azure Business to Business and Business to Consumer technologies. And I hope that's what you're interested in. All right. My name is Morgan Simonsen. I work at a Norwegian company called Dumagate. We specialize in cloud computing, public or private. And if you're interested in such things, get in touch with us. I've spent almost 25 years working on Microsoft technologies, but the last 5 have been purely with their public cloud offering. So that's part of that we're going to talk about today. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them during the session. If you have something you want to ask me in private, come see me later. My email is on the slide. Get in touch after the conference, or whatever you like. But before I get started, I'd like to show you something. There is, for us who are interested in the identity space, our friends in the Baltics, namely Estonia, have come up with a new form of residentship that we all can apply, Paul, something called an e-resident. So now we can become virtual electronic citizens of the country of Estonia. We can found companies, we can have banking accounts, we can fill in tax returns. On second thought, who wants that? But anyway, you can become a virtual electronic citizen of the country and in so doing gain some of the rights that an EU citizen does that we do not have here in Norway, who are not part of the EU. So I think this is a really interesting new development in the identity space. So they actually issue you an ID card with a digital certificate that is honored by their own internal government digital portals and banks and insurance companies, etc. So I got mine yesterday. I went to the Estonian embassy to pick it up, and I got this nice welcome kit with the card and the card reader and all the stuff I needed to get going. So this is great. I'm finally going to have a nice way to launder all my drug money. So I suggest you all have a look at that. It's a very interesting development. And yes, very cool for us identity geeks. But over to what we're actually going to talk about. This is pretty much what we're going to cover. I have to give you an idea of what cloud identity means and how it works in the Microsoft world. And then we'll jump right into Azure Active Directory business to business collaboration, and then finish up with business to consumer. Now, these are both huge topics in and of itself, and we only have an hour, so I'll move fairly quickly and hopefully give you an overview. I can't give you all the details in an hour, but I'll try my best. All right, so I have a demo coming later on, which offers you an opportunity for audience participation. So if you are feeling brave, you can email me your email address and a name in the format that is in the third bullet there. I'd like your email, comma, and then your name sent in the subject field to my email address. If none of you wants to join, I'll be very sad, but I have a backup. But just for fun, this is an opportunity to participate in the business-to-business demo. So I'll keep that on the slides. At the bottom, you see I've written it there, where you can email me. Unfortunately, since this is an enterprise feature, we don't support things like Facebook or Gmail or IDs like that. And I promise I will not spam you. I will delete you from my directory after the demo is done. But if you want to participate, that's how you do it. So send me an email, subject, your email address, and what you would like your display name to be. And I'll include you in the demo. All right, let's see. So first off, cloud identity with Azure AD. So Azure Active Directory is, like the name says, a directory service. The difference is that it's running in the cloud. It's a multi-tenant system. It's globally available all through the globe on all the Azure data centers. And it's the backbone of Microsoft's cloud offering. You cannot consume anything in the Microsoft cloud, be it Azure, Office 365, Intune, or anything else, without having an Azure Active Directory tenant, which is comparable to an Active Directory domain, the one we know from our own data centers. So the difference is that Azure AD is a cloud directory, right? It's much more lightweight. It's designed to work with the next generation of authentication protocols and web standards. So there is nothing, no things like LDAP support or RPC or any of those legacy technologies. This is only web-exposed RESTful APIs using things like JSON objects and OData models to present data. And it's a completely distributed system with relying parties and registered application and things like that. So it's very comparable to the way Active Directory works internally today. It is the backbone providing identity and authorization for all our services, right? So we have directory integrated applications at home like Exchange or SharePoint or whatever. We have the exact same thing in the cloud, but they integrate in a totally different way. Where your Outlook client would use Kerberos to authenticate against the Exchange server in your data center, we use something called ADAL and federated authentication to authenticate against Azure Active Directory and the Exchange Online service. So the principle is the same, but the method is very, very different. All right, so Azure AD is a huge service performing billions of authentication each day. It's highly available. Has all the security certifications like ISO 27001 and things like that. And it's completely maintained by Microsoft. So we don't have to spend any time maintaining our directory anymore. We just put users in it and that's it. So when we create domains and forests in our own data centers and we want to collaborate with someone, it introduces a problem, right? Because we're all running our own separate directories, and we would like to, if we want to establish collaboration with someone, we have to either trust them or set up federation or set up partner directories and things like that. With Azure AD, that's very different because now we're actually all part of the same service. So you can think of this as a forest in the cloud, an Active Directory forest in the cloud. That's not directly transferable, just so you get an idea of the principle. And we're all in this same forest, right? And we select domains within the forest, except they're not domains anymore, they're tenants, because Azure AD is the only true multi-tenant directory Microsoft has ever created. So we are all tenants, we are logically separated. There is no chance that data from my tenants accidentally flow into yours, or the other way around. But we all share this global Azure AD trust fabric, and that's very important for the first topic of the day, which is B2B collaboration. Because it means that I don't have to establish a relationship with you. We are both already in Azure AD. The only thing I have to do is select which users I want to use things in my directory and then grant them access. That's it. And we'll dig into that in more detail. So this is one of the absolute killer features of Azure AD. And Azure AD itself is a free service. Anyone can get it, can start using it without subscribing to any of the other Microsoft services like 365 or even Azure subscriptions. Azure AD is free. So what is this thing, right? So I'm going to try to express the idea of Azure AD B2B with the help of Captain Picard from Star Trek. I guess you're all Star Trek fans, right? I hope so. So he is a very, very I don't know, a man with many expressions. So let's see. So right now, we all have these ways we need to collaborate with other organizations, right? It might be we have partners, we have projects where we want to work together with someone else. We have all of these scenarios which require us to have cross-org collaboration. And the way we traditionally have solved that is that we either create what we call a partner directory. Let's say we set up an extra domain in our DMC, and we put all the partner users in there. And that means we have to manage their identities. When they leave the partner company, we're not informed, we don't know. So they might have access to our systems for years. Actually, I tested this the other day with accounts I obtained in my previous jobs, which I left almost 3 years ago, and I still have access to several on-premises business systems in that company because they maintain these separate directory islands all over the place, and they don't deprovision me when I leave. Or if we're a little bit more modern, we could do federation. we could establish an explicit federation trust between our directories and say, okay, I will trust you to provide identity for users, and I will assign them access in my services. Well, this works okay, and in fact, it's what Azure AD does, except it's very costly and complex and expensive to maintain, right? And for everyone you want to have a collaboration with, you have to establish this new trust relationship between them, this new federation. Or you could do a regular Windows forest or domain trust, right? Which are even more brittle and hard to maintain and absolutely not suited to the internet. So that means you probably will have a VPN, things like that. It all gets very sad, and Picard is not happy about this. This is definitely not what he envisioned when he set out on this journey. Okay, so what is the solution? Well, one solution is to try this new feature in Azure AD, which is in preview. It's a relatively new service. It's available to use preview, but it's supported by Microsoft. So this is something called an invitation and redeem model. And it's based on this global trust fabric, right? We are all in the Active Directory service, Azure AD. So that means that we have a potential to connect with each other. And that's exactly what we're doing. So I, as an administrator, can invite users from other tenants to come and consume something in my tenant, right? So that means that what I'm sharing has to be a part of my directory, has to be associated with it, and I have to own it, right? I can't just give someone else access to someone else's service or tenant. It has to be registered in my tenant, and I have to own it, right? So that lets me share both my applications and data and also licenses with other users. I can actually invite them to my tenant and give them licenses for service that they don't themselves have in their tenant, like Office 365, actually. So you control the access, the authorization, but the partner, since in his Azure AD tenants, he controls the authorization. So it's up to him to specify things like password policies and the use of MFA, things like that, right? So we trust them to do that, but we control the authorization. And this is exactly what Picard wants, so he's coming along. So what are the specific features of B2B? So it works by inviting users over email. You get a message saying, hey, someone has invited you to come and use this application at this other place. So it's an invitation by email model, right? And all of this is handled by Azure AD itself. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to set up anything or apply rules or firewalls or anything to this. It's completely handled by Azure AD service. So external users, they can access applications that are registered in your tenants. And an application in Azure AD has to be a modern application, right? This can't be your file server. It has to be an application that can integrate with Azure AD and speak the languages it speaks, right? That means software as a service applications, modern web apps, and things like that, that support federation and OAuth protocols. They can become members of our groups. So if we have group assignments to different resources, they can actually join our groups as users from their own directories and gain access that way. And I'll show you that in the demo later on. And like I said, I can give them licenses for things they don't normally have. So if they need to come into my tenant and use, I don't know, Skype for Business to collaborate, I can give them a temporary Skype for Business license and then just take that away when we're done collaborating. They don't have to buy that in order to work with me. So in my directory, the partner users, they exist as something called an external user. And I'll show you that in a little more detail too. So they actually show up in your directory. So you can delete them and thus revoke access, right? So we're not totally dependent on the partner. We trust them to deprovision the user when he leaves, but we can at any time revoke access by removing them from our directory. And although we're using the Azure AD Global Trust Fabric, and we all have to be in Azure AD, you don't actually have to stand up a tenant before you start participating in collaboration, which is another really cool feature with Azure AD, which I'll come to in a second. And this is definitely going the way the good captain wants. So let's keep going. So how does this thing work? So the overall flow is like this. An admin, which has to be a global admin in something called the resource tenant, the tenant that owns the actual thing we want to share. He invites someone using a text file, a traditional good old CSV file, and I'll tell you about how that looks in a moment. He imports this file, and the limit is something like 8,000 users per import run. So scares fairly well. They're working on removing that, but that's what we have to work with right now. So Azure AD parses this file, sends out all the emails to the invited users. They get a link. The link looks like it's branded with our identity. It has some text in it. We can supply help links for if they can't make it work and things like that. And the user, he does this redemption. He redeems the invitation by clicking on the link in your email and completing a sign-up flow, right? And if he doesn't have Azure AD yet, he gets his own tenant at this point automatically. And I'll get back to that as well. So when he does that, a guest object is created in the resource tenant or the inviting tenant, and we can see the actual user there. And we can also tell if he is actually accepted the invitation or if it's just been sent to him. And when that happens, he is added into the resources and the groups, and he can access them either through the My Apps portal or a direct URL. Now there is one little weakness here. There is no way for us to discover yet exactly where these users are granted access. So you'll have to go back to the invite file and look at what you actually invited them to figure that out. That's obviously coming in a B2P report pretty soon. But that's right now there is no portal where you can see where every invited user is. So I thought I'd show you how this actually works. So this is managed through the old Azure portal, right? So this is my directory, and these are my users. You can see they are either sourced directly from Azure Active Directory or from my local directory. And these are all, people I've provisioned here. Now, the way to start collaborating with B2B is selecting to create a new user, but then choosing users in partner companies. Now, I already have this option, right? User in another Microsoft Azure AD directory. And that works almost the same way, right? I can pick a user from another tenant and add him to my tenant as a guest. But using that functions require that my user can actually read from both directories. With B2B, that is obviously not necessary because the whole redemption process and the invite process is done by the B2B system, right? So that's the way those two are different. So I select this one, user in partner directories. This one changes to ask for a CSV file, right? So first off, we're going to invite a user that already has Azure AD as part of his company's offering, right? And it's going to be myself in my own Office 365 tenant that I'm going to invite. So I'll select this user. This file. It has only one user in it. It's uploading, and you see now I click this, have this nice link. Click here for batch status report, because I get my own reports for all the invite batches I've run through B2B. So here I can see who I'm inviting, what time it happened, and how far in the process B2B has actually come with provisioning this thing, right? Email delivery to email server. If there are errors, I can download the errors here and parse them and re-invite those users. I can download the CSV file again if I've lost the original one and want to have a look at, hey, what happened here 3 years ago or whatever, right? So I can do that. It's archived in the service. So hopefully pretty soon, I'm going to open up my email and have a look at my inbox. And here we go. Here is the invitation. And you see it's branded with the logo of the inviting company. And it says, hello, and this is the name I specified for the user. This organization has invited you to access their application. Use this link to access the application at any time. So the first time I click this one, it's going to start the initial redemption process. Once that's completed, I can come back to this link and click it, and it'll just see, oh, the redemption has already been done. I'm going to get the guy right into the application. Now, because I have several identities, I'm going to copy this hyperlink, and we're going to start up Chrome in an isolated browser session, right? I'm going to paste it in here. A normal user would only have one user, not 200 like I have. And let's see. So you see the address, redeem b2b azure.net. Now, this is the name of the application that I've invited him to, and this is the logo of the application, right? So you have been invited to access this application as this user. By accepting the invitation, you will be prompted to sign in with your work or school account, right? Work or school account, that means Azure AD account. Click accept to sign in, all right? So remember, I already have an Azure AD user account in this scenario. So now I'm taken to my own tenant's sign-in page. You notice the inviting page, the previous page, was with the branding of the inviting tenant. This is my tenant, and it's an unbranded tenant, right? If I was working in a company that had branded their own tenant, now my logo would show up. So I can immediately distinguish between the two. Okay, now I'm in the resource tenant, now I'm in my tenant. It's very easy for the user to see. So now I have to authenticate myself. Invite accepted successfully. Redirecting to application in 5 seconds. So I haven't actually specified where the application is. So what's going to happen here is that he is going to end up in the My Apps portal, right? myapps.microsoft.com, that's the Azure My Apps portal. And you see, I am now in the resource tenants portal because I can see that the logo from the inviting tenant is up here, the organization name is here, my ID is here, and this is the applications I can access. Now, if I click here, I can switch focus to another tenant, right? Because if I go back to my home tenant, the branding changes and I have other applications. So again, it's easy for me to see what's going on. So I'm going to switch back to the inviting tenant. I'm going to try accessing this application, which hopefully works. So now I'm authenticated in my tenant. I'm forwarded to the resource tenant with a token. And since we now have a relationship, we accept that my tenant can authorize someone in the resource tenant. So this is the application, very simple application. It just shows you the claim that was issued. And we'll talk about this in a little detail later. So that's basically how it works. Are you as happy as Picard was? Ah, good to know. All right. So how does these CSV files work then? So that was a little surprise to me, I have to admit, when that's what they came up with. But this is the first version. So let's just leave that for now. So this file, regular text file, it has some values that you need to be aware of. Now these three are the only required values that have to be in the file. The email that we're going to send the invite to, right? That also means that this is probably, hopefully, also the receiving user's sign-in name in his Azure Active Directory tenant. It doesn't have to be, but hopefully it is, right? The display name, the name I want the users to have in my directory. And there are endless hours of potential fun here, naming users in your directory with different names that they have in their own directory. But anyway, you can specify here what you want their display name to be. And you can also specify something called invite contact us URL. So this is a help page, right? It doesn't have anything to do with B2B itself. It doesn't provide any service. It's just a URL that they can visit if they can't figure out how to make it work, right? So this is typically, hey, you click here to call us or email us or whatever. So these are the actual only 3 fields you have to specify. Now, obviously, specifying a file with only those 3 would just create a user in your tenant and nothing more. You wouldn't have any access. You could, of course, later grant him manual access, but why do it manually when you have these fields that can handle that for you? So we have invite app ID. This actually is designed to do something that isn't supported in Azure AD yet, because each application that is integrated with Azure AD can have its own branding, its own logo, and its own sign-in page, if you like. Now, the only thing that's working today is the application logo that you saw, right? You saw that red strange icon in the invite email. That's the actual application branding, and that's what this field specifies. Invite app ID. How should the application present itself in the invite? You don't have to have that. All these are optional fields. Next one is invite app resource. So which actual applications are you actually going to give this user access to? And you can only specify one at a time. So if you want to have multiple, you have to invite them again. And they'll get a separate invite for each application. Obviously, that's also going to be worked out. Second one, or third one, invite group resources. Which group in my tenant would you like them to join? So if you have it set up so that you use groups for access control, which I hope you have, then you can just add users from other tenants into those groups, and they'll have access to all those resources. And I'll show that in another demo. The reply URL is, okay, once the invite process is done, where do you want the users to end up? Now, I haven't specified that in my invite, right? So they ended up in the apps portal with the icon that they had access to. But I could actually send them to the application URL, so they could end up there with the actual application that they're going to use. That's all up to you. And we have language. The language of the invite. Currently 10 languages are supported. I'll show them to you in a bit. And finally, CC email address. Who should have a copy of the invite? Now, it's not really clear what that field does, because it's a non-documented one that I just happened to stumble over when I was reading through some stuff. But I tested it out, I had to, of course, and I got the exact same invite to another email address. I didn't try to redeem that, but maybe that works as well. So this is basically the CSV file, very, very simple. But there are a couple of things in here that you need to work out, and that's those app invite resources and group resources. So how do we find those? Then you have to use PowerShell, right? So to figure out what the app ID is, or the group ID, you use these commands. And I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do like this. And I'm already authenticated in my tenant here, in the inviting tenant, right? So this is the tenant that is running the application. So let's see. I had a typo there because I didn't get any. Hello? Hopefully that's better. So these are all the applications that are registered. And you can't invite to something that isn't registered, right? So this is the actual value I would need to invite them to my Facebook at Work service, right? So that's the app IDs. For the groups, it's the same thing. And now we know that paste into PowerShell isn't working. And this is the same thing, the object ID of the group, right? So this group we're going to use in the next demo, which is the SharePoint Online Partners at NIC's 2016 Edit group, which I'm hoping to join some of you to later, right? So this is the group ID I need to put into the CSV file in order to add you to that group. All right, so let's briefly, before we continue, look at how the user looks in my directory after I've invited him, right? So he should show up here. And you see he is from other directory. And of course, I can't change his sign-in name or anything here. I can only change things that are relevant in my directory, right? All right. Any questions so far? Looking good? Yes?
Is the invite linked to the address that you're sending it to? Is it so it's only can only be used for that?
Yes, it can. It's scoped to that email address. So the question is the invite targeted at that ID? Yes, it is. You have to be able to authenticate as that ID in Azure AD in order to do that. All right. So language support, very briefly, 10 languages are supported, and the invite will change its language based on what you specify here. So in order to access the resource, you can either go directly to the application if you know what it is. That is known as a service provider initiated federation authentication flow, or you can use the My Apps portal like I just showed you, right? And you can also, if you would like, manually in your own redirects or links specify the address of another tenant using this format down here. So you supply the query parameter tenant ID, and this is the GUID of the resource tenant, right? So if you want to build like links and things in your own intranet or something, you can do that here. Or this focus button that I showed you in the upper right corner of the My Apps portal. So this focus button is totally undiscoverable, right? Unless you specifically know to click that name, you have no idea how to switch tenants. So they're working on a way to improve on that. Okay, so I said we have to be in Azure AD in order to be a part of this, right? But the user doesn't really have to know if he has an Azure AD user account or not, because we can handle that as we go. So there are two cases for a user to participate in a B2B collaboration scenario. The first one is the one I just showed you, where the user already has an Azure AD account. He doesn't know it, but he does, right? So he'll just authenticate if he's set up, he's used to logging in that way probably if he has some other cloud service that he's using. But he'll just log in, and it'll all just work automatically. Now, if the user doesn't have that, or hasn't got a user in an Azure AD tenant, then we create something called a viral tenant in Azure AD. So this is the way to automatically stand up a new tenant in the Azure AD service, add that user into it, and verify that he is the owner of the login name he selected. It's called a viral tenant. Are some of you concerned now that users can themselves automatically provision new tenants? Well, you shouldn't be. It's pretty safe. All right. So these are called either viral tenants or self-service sign-up for Azure AD. And B2B isn't the only service that's using this in Azure AD today. It's also used by RMS for individuals and Power BI. Right. So what happens is that the tenant that gets created, it's completely unmanaged, right? There is no admin, there is no GA in this tenant at all. No one owns it, no one can change its settings. It just exists to house users that sign up for Azure AD services themselves. Right? So that means that if I have an email address in a domain that isn't yet tied to an Azure AD tenant, I can go in and automatically get one. I can provision a tenant for that domain, and I can join it as a user. They are also unverified by domain name, right? The way we stand up an Azure AD tenant in the normal way is that we log on, we select this name in front of onmicrosoft.com, and then we add one or more of our own custom domains to it, and we verify that we own those, and it's all good. There is no such verification inside a viral tenant. It's just stood up. What we verify are the email addresses of the users that are in it, right? And we create one tenant per email domain for users that sign up. And the only form of attestation, like I said, is this email address that you get to in your inbox, right? So you receive the invite, you log on, and it says, okay, you were able to get this link. That means you must own the email address, so we're going to stand up a tenant for you and put you in it. Now, if you don't like this approach, you can actually block your email domains from having this viral sign-up. It's not an easy process. So a better option would just be to provision Azure AD for your organization before you even think about using it, and then adding all your domains to it, right? That means you have a verified tenant that you own and manage with all your domains in it, so none of your users can automatically sign up. Right. But if this has happened, if you are in the, I wouldn't say unfortunate, but if you are in the situation where one of your users has virally signed up for Azure AD account using one of your company domains, and you would like to start using that domain with the real tenant, or you'd like to take that tenant over, that is also supported. And we have two options. We have something called an internal takeover. That means that we have a tenant in Azure AD, one or more of your users are in it, right? But it's unmanaged. You can go into your DNS, your Azure portal, and specify the domain name that you own, right? That is actually yours to administer in a DNS fashion. And if Azure AD detects that, hey, someone has already used this domain, it'll take you to the internal takeover process, which means that the tenant becomes managed, you become the global administrator, and it starts working just like a regular tenant does. Now, in the other situation, you might actually have an Azure AD tenant, right? But it doesn't have all your domains in it. So that in that scenario, you would have your managed tenant with maybe 5 of your 10 email domains, and another tenant, which is a viral tenant that is unmanaged. Then you can perform an external takeover where Microsoft will actually merge those two tenants together. It'll take everything from the unmanaged tenant, including the domain, and just automatically fork it over to your managed tenant. So all your users are still in there, they retain their access, and it's all working really well. There are some issues here with SharePoint Online access and things like that, but it pretty much works okay when you do an external takeover. So social identities are not supported for viral tenants. That's why I can't accept Facebook or Gmail addresses if we're going to do this demo later on, right? They don't support that because all these large email providers, they've specifically asked Microsoft to, hey, put us on the block list. We don't want to have any users sign up for that. Neither do we want to create our own Azure AD tenant and manage it and block it that way. We just want no one to be able to do that. So how does this look for the user? So like I said, it's email address attestation, and I will get, to make sure that I continually own that email address that the Azure AD user is tied to, I will ask for reconfirmation on a regular basis, right? Now, there is an interesting thing here. Since this tenant is unmanaged, there is just the default password policy. There is no one has gone in and put up a stronger password policy than the one required, right? And that leaves the option for users to actually forget their passwords, and no one can help them get back in. So the way they solve that is that they're offering Azure AD self-service password resets for free for anyone in a viral tenant, right? So if they sign up and you can't access your account, you go to the login page. The link is right there under the password. Hey, can't access your account? You click that, and you're taken through the Azure AD self-service password reset. And what happens is that you get a confirmation code sent to your email. You use that to reset the password you're all tried that before. Now, another interesting thing is that I can actually discover which other users might have signed up under the same domain name as I have. And I'm going to show you that before we move along. I have previously invited a user from a Norwegian service provider's domain. I guess you're all familiar with, we have this domain here in Norway called online.no. It's owned by one of our largest ISPs. They have not put that domain on the block list. So I was actually able to sign up in a viral tenant for that domain. I hope none of you work there because you will not be happy. All right. Anyway, so let me show you how that looks, okay? So, or first of all, actually, let's invite a user in that domain, another user, okay? So same thing as before, add user from partner company. And now we're going to do this, right? Viral tenant. So I'm going to invite someone from a domain that doesn't have a tenant today. Let's see what happens. Okay. So let's see what we have. This is the email I have now invited. And hopefully, I will get an invite here in not too long. Let's see what's going on with the invite process. Did I actually get it going? Let's see. Processing has finished. Looks good. Sometimes this is, here we go. You have been invited to an app. That's nice. I'm going to do the same thing again because I have several identities here. Copy the address. Go in here. And now it'll detect that, hey, you don't have an Azure AD account, right? So we're going to have to stand one up for you. And this is your email, right? I accept that. Now, I don't have an Azure AD account. Interesting. Someone has done something since this happened the last time. So what would normally happen here, if I haven't been blocked for in some way, is that I would be asked to set a password, right, for this new Azure AD account that I'm going to create. And that's it. That's the only thing that happens, and everything else is done in the background. But luckily for me, I already have another user in the same domain that I have done this process with. So I'm going to log on as that. Because this is actually, I have it here. And now I'm authenticating against Azure AD PowerShell endpoint as an end user, which is completely legit, right? Because remember, Azure AD is an enterprise directory, right? It's designed to work within a company, and we all trust each other, at least partially. So this is not construed as a problem. So now I'm connected. I can do get msol user, and these are all the other guys who have done the same thing as I have in this domain, and also signed up for a viral user in this viral tenant. So I can also do get msol company information, and I get some stuff here. And this is what I talked about earlier, self-service password reset enabled, right? But someone has obviously done something to this tenant, right? Who owns it, since I can't sign up for a new user. But anyway, that's the flow of the thing. We'll see if some of you has another email address later. All right. So was anyone brave enough to send me an email address? Because I'll use that to show you the CSV file as well. All right. Good stuff. So I'll do like this. If there are too many of you, I'll just do a few. Okay. So we're gonna need this file, and I'm going to open it in Excel to make it easier for you to see what's actually going on, right? We have to do it like this. If anyone figures out how I, as a Norwegian, can have Excel save files with a comma instead of a semicolon, I'll give you wine or something. That really doesn't work. Okay, so this is the CSV file, right? The email address, the display name, the contact us URL, the app ID. This app is for the ID is for the Claims Web app. This is the actual app resource, and this is a group I want to add you to as well, right? Reply URL, language, and CC. I'm not going to use that at all. So let's see what happens if I paste in here. Is he going to understand that? Wonderful. Anyone else? Let's see. All right. Paste. There we go. Estonian president. I did not know that, Roy. You have to post that on LinkedIn, all right? It's only a few of you left. Oops. Let's see. All right, excellent. Now I'm going to give you all the same access, right? So I'm just going to copy this. And have you sign in. So now, when I save this thing, yes, I want to keep using that format. It looks good. Yes, please. Go away. Yes. 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 Come on, Excel. And now I have to, since I have this comma thing going, I have to do like this, and I have to do a replace. Replace this one with this one. Okay. So let's see how this works. We go to Azure AD in the portal, and we select some users. Partner users, and this is the file 1106. That looks good. Now, most common errors with B2B is with this CSV file, and it looks like I may have screwed it up, because if there is even a single mistake in here, no, okay, it's good, then nothing will work, right? So it'll just say that there are no reports for this file. So just go back and look. So I'll leave it to you to actually access things. I'm going to do this with my user because I'll show you what I've given you access to, so you can try to get in there. So SharePoint is also a part of this, right? So I have created the NIC 2016 partner site. And I've invited you, I've added all of you to a group that has access to this site, right? So if I look at page permissions, I have, as members of this one, I have this group, which is an Azure AD group, which you are now all members of that joined the demo, right? So you should be able to visit this URL and access this awesome community page, which I've highly customized by adding the NIC logo. All right, so try that out and see if it works. You are also given access to the Claims Web application that you just saw, this one, right? Claims Web at this address. So you can go in and have a look at your own token. I love looking at tokens. So a lot of business value right there. Okay, but it might be that you have a tenant and you want to control, all your users might not be in it, so you want to control what's actually going on here. So you can have a fully managed tenant, but you can still let users create viral users in it, right? Viral accounts. So you might not have provisioned them, but you'll let them do it themselves. And you can also control if they can license themselves for free or invited services. So I say, okay, you can sign up, and you can also provision services for yourself, right? And you control that with the set msol company information commandlet, and you have something called allow email verified users, which means users are allowed to add to the directory with an email, and allow ad hoc subscriptions, right? And there's this flow here that says, okay, are email signups allowed? Yes or no? Are ad hoc subscriptions allowed? Yes, no, and it goes through this flow. So you can control it the way you like. A good middle way would say no email signups, but let users create services for themselves, subscriptions, right? Because then they can do things like RMS for individuals, which lets them collaborate. And they can also do Azure AD business to business. So there is a list of these blocked domains. It's an JSON format. I've included the URL there. It's a very large list. But it basically boils down to any social identity and anyone offering, email services to anyone. They don't want us creating Azure AD tenants for them, strangely enough. Okay, so when we look at the invited users, they have this particular format in our directory. And we can have a look here and see if some of you have made it in. So let's see. Here we go. So this user is from another directory. I can't change anything here. If you noticed on the previous page, his UPN looks a little special. It looks something like this. So based on I can see that Tommy has already accepted his invitation because his user principal name is not in this format, right? If he hadn't accepted it, if he just received the invite, I would see that he would still have this external denominator inside of his username. But he has accepted. I can see that because his username has changed. Okay, so looking at the tokens for this, I'll go back to my Claims Web app. You'll notice something very interesting if you're into tokens. Because first off, I have the tenant ID, which is the tenant where the resource is, right? And this one comes from the guest directory, and this is also who authenticated the directory. So these change slightly, right? When it's an invited user authenticating against his own instance of Azure STS and comes into your tenant as opposed to one of your own users. Also fun to look at, right? So you cannot expire an invite right now. You send an invite, it's there forever. We would maybe like it so that if it hasn't been accepted in a month, then it expires. And that's going to be added as a feature too. The only way to cancel an invite that has not been redeemed is to delete the user from your directory. If it has been redeemed and you want to revoke access, you just delete the user. Very easy. There are also a couple of limitations here right now. No MFA. If you use MFA in your tenant to authenticate against something, and the other user that you're inviting in doesn't have MFA on his users, it'll fail. What Microsoft is working on in that scenario is that you, as the service provider of the application, can assign and even pay for MFA for the invited user. And that also opens up a scenario where you have this sensitive application, right, which you would like to protect with an additional layer of security. Then you can actually buy and provision MFA for invited users, even they don't have it. So you can actually control that feature. So I won't go through all of these, but I'll leave them in the presentation so you can download them. Azure AD Premium is not required to use B2B, but if you have premium licenses for Azure AD, then you can assign groups to apps and have easier access management to apps, right? And you can also use branding to visualize who is inviting. You saw that in my demo because I have Azure AD Premium licenses, but if you don't, you can still use this flow, but it'll show up as an unbranded tenant. All right, so we have a few minutes to cover the next topic, which is Azure AD Business to Consumer. Now, an important difference here, right, is that Azure AD, as we know it, is an enterprise directory. I, as a user, can, as you saw in PowerShell, I can log on to the directory, I can see everyone else. Authenticated users have read access, right? Because we're all going to work in the same company and we need to talk to each other, right? We need to find each other and discover information about each other. In a consumer directory, it's completely different, right? We don't want anyone to know about anyone else. So in a B2C scenario for Azure AD, you cannot log on to the directory, you cannot discover anything about anyone else. It's a completely user-isolated scenario. So the challenges here are pretty much the same as they were for B2B, right? You are building some form of customer-facing thing, right? Could be a fan club, could be an e-commerce site, anything that's going to face someone not operating as a business user. You're operating as a private citizen, right? As a private person. Now, traditionally, you have to build the identity management system yourself, code all the access, store all the password in a secure manner. All of these things is your responsibility, right? And that opens you up for attacks as well, because if your service gets popular enough, perfect example is Slack, this new collaboration software. Once their sign-up reached a particular level, they were hacked. And they did all of this on their own, right? So that's a high-risk situation for us. And to do it well means a lot of cost. And you might have a sudden tremendous spike of interest, right? And if your system can't handle the sign-up or the logins, your users will just leave, right? You know, how long are you much time are you willing to spend on a web page that doesn't work? Microseconds, right? Before you go somewhere else. But all of these things can be solved by using Azure AD B2C. And Microsoft has built this global identity platform called Azure AD, right? It's designed as an enterprise directory. Now they've taken all those features and all the high availability and all the best practices and everything they've built into it and created another version of it that they call B2C. So this is built on the same infrastructure that is running Azure AD, the regular one, right? B2C is built on top of that. And it's designed specifically as consumer-facing identity service. And you can use it to build any kind of customer-facing app. Could be a mobile app, web app, PC app, anything that's able to sign in, right? And there is no limit to the scale here. There is virtually no limit. Azure AD B2C supports hundreds of millions of users without breaking a sweat. The largest B2C tenant today is the Real Madrid Football Club, which has 450 million users in one tenant. And it's performing exceptionally well. So I don't think any of us will have any capacity problems in here. And what B2C does is it takes away all the effort into managing identities, right? Sign up, attestation, sign out, profile editing, using social identity, if is that what you want, everything is handled by B2C. The only thing you need to do in your application is to point the user to B2C and accept the token that comes back. Everything else is handled by B2C for you. So you as a developer or a company can focus on the actual application, right, that you want. And Azure AD B2C has all the same security monitoring and reporting and patch management and security that regular Active Directory has. And it's really cheap. The first 50,000 users are free. So it's a very appealing offer. So it's different from regular Azure Active Directory in a couple of very important ways. And that is that it does not support even legacy cloud applications. Azure AD B2C only speaks OAuth and OpenID Connect, which is sort of like the default standard for authentication for modern applications like Google, Facebook, and all those others, big providers. They all use OpenID Connect and OAuth. So that's the only language that Azure AD B2C speaks, right? Everything is managed through a RESTful API using OData. We have source libraries for everything, every platform, iOS, Android, PC, whatever, Node.js, any application. You have an SDK that lets you automatically just plug into this system and use it. So I'll show you, I have an application, or I don't have it, but Microsoft has. This is a demo application that you yourself can try. ProSquareSquantoso.com. Squantoso is, Stuart Kwan is a program manager in Azure B2C group, right? So he's created this application. So this is an example of a customer-facing application that supports self-service sign-up and using Azure B2C. So if I have an account, I can sign in. If I want to sign up, I click here. And ProSquare has decided to allow social identities so they can sign up with their Google ID, Facebook account, Microsoft accounts. More are being added all the time. Or they can create something called a local ProSquare account, which is an account stored in ProSquare's B2C tenant, right? Where you can have all these hundreds of millions of users. So if I select a social identity, I will let Facebook do the actual authentication, send the token to B2C, and then store a profile in Azure Active Directory B2C, and then log on, right? So the user really doesn't know tell the difference. But I can sign up here, and I enter my email address. And they've actually added MFA, which is also free for Azure AD B2C. And I will get a message sent to my email with a verification code that I have to use to prove to the system that I own this email address, right? And all of these features that I'm using now are handled by B2C. I don't have to buy, a mail service that can send these invites or anything like. I just say, click a button. I would like this kind of verification in my app, and it's handled by that. And so let's see what's happening under the covers. I want you have all signed up for something before. You don't have to see that. So you see, this is my regular Azure AD, right? My enterprise directory. These two are B2C directories. So I create them here in the old management portal. Directory, custom create. This is a B2C directory, right? That's all there is to it. And it's automatically provisioned for you. But you manage it in the new portal for some strange reason. So it sends you over to the new portal at a special URL, Microsoft Azure AD B2C admin, blah, blah, blah. And here I can now manipulate my Azure AD B2C directory. Now, I am logged in now with an account from an Azure AD regular tenant, because I have to be logged in. There have to be an initial user that can log in, right? And that's that user. So these are the registered applications, the identity providers that are available. I've added Facebook to my B2C directory, but I also have local accounts that are using email, right? Which is the sort of like the industry standard. These are all the attributes that we can ask users for. Many of these are built in, but I can also select my own, right? So I would like to have, as part of the sign-up process, because this is a consumer-facing app, I would like to include a field for the membership number, right? So if you're a member of some sort of, premium club or anything, you can enter your membership number here. And the cool thing about B2C is that you can do all kinds of great tricks with accessing other data sources during the sign-up, right? So the user puts in a membership ID. B2C can go and check with the commerce system, is this actually a valid membership number? If so, what is the phone number? And we can pull the phone number back, put it into the sign-up form, and have the users verify with an SMS message that this is actually their number. All those kinds of flows you can create in Azure AD B2C. And for the sign-up policies, you have sign up, sign in, profile editing. These are like three main operations that you do, right, in a system like this. So sign-up policies, this is one of my policies. I can edit it just quickly to show you what's going on here. Okay, so for this policy, and you specify in your application, right, when you send users to B2C, hey, which policy are you going to use in this particular case? So you can have all kinds of different policies for different purposes, even different applications, that you call when they sign up. So in this case, I've selected to allow Facebook and email sign up, right? I've said that in this particular case, I would like the users to provide these 4 attributes and nothing else. I will send these 4 same values to the application once he's authenticated. I could include more here, right? Retrieve some from some other system if I wanted to. And I don't want to use MFA. That's it. You'll notice in this application that the login here still says login microsoftonline.com, right? So, but I can even brand the URL to my domain. And using this control here, where was I? Here, I can actually supply a style sheet that the service will adopt so that it can present itself in exactly the same way as the rest of my application does. It's very cool. So you can play around with this. There's all sorts of different things. As a final thing, I'm going to show you the Real Madrid app, which is using this service. And I suggest you go and read the Real Madrid case study that is written up on Microsoft.com and see all the cool things that this football club has done with the Microsoft Cloud, because Azure AD B2C is just a small part of it. So this application, you see, obviously it's a native application, right? It's not a web application. It's using the Windows SDK for Azure AD B2C. And if I click here, they have allowed me to sign up using these three, right? And you immediately recognize that this is the B2C policies that they just hooked off, right? And this is completely Real Madrid branded, right? So I can sign up here. Very, very cool feature. I'm a fan of Barcelona, so I will not sign up here. Damn you. All right, so this case is written up at Microsoft.com. I suggest you have a look at it. Now, as a final slide, there are many ways to collaborate with Azure AD. There is also something called the Azure AD multi-tenant application model. So we have B2B, I can invite you, you can come into my app, we can collaborate. You have B2C, I can have customers sign up for my customer-facing app, but I can also create in Azure, or anywhere else for that matter, an application that understands Azure AD multi-tenancy. So you can create one instance of an app. You use the Azure AD SDK to say that, hey, I am able to understand different user contexts. So an admin goes in and says, okay, we're going to buy this app. He goes into the Azure portal, selects the application from the list or follows the instructions by the provider, and he says that I approve this application to read my directory. So a relationship between a particular tenant in the app is initiated between a particular tenant in Azure AD. And this slide tries to explain, we won't go through it now in detail, but it's trying to explain when you should use what, right? Because B2B is for me inviting you into things like that. Multi-tenant application is for a company actually providing a service to businesses, right? It's not collaboration like that. All right. I don't think we have time for questions. I have to get out of here for the next speaker. Thank you very much for coming. Hope it wasn't too boring, and I hope to see you next year.